Yeah, it works for you.
Okay. I'd say Twitch requires 2FA to be enabled to the stream now. So
Oh,
I guess
interesting.
YouTube
Google
doesn't. Right now, they've got a shot of inside the capsule. The two astronauts, one of them's taking a quick nap. And they do that on purpose. They're called micro naps, they call it.
Right.
So
As I get older, those micro naps are more common.
evidently. So I got
Hello, Sam Cashton.
Yeah, welcome, Sam. All right, I guess let's go ahead and get started. We can keep tabs on the fight as time goes on. Welcome everybody. It's June somehow, and the year is just getting away from us.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful day out there. Hope everyone has a chance to enjoy it. So let's do what we normally do. And I wasn't here last time, so anything exciting happened I need to know about?
Launching a spaceship.
He means last time, Pete.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know yet what y'all are up to when I'm not here. Apparently a lot more than typical.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Is Santiago Holder here? I don't see him.
No.
He contacted Jay LaCroix. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He is a Linux guru, and he owns his own company called LearnLinux.tv. He's been working with Linux for probably 20 years, and well known, nationwide, worldwide, probably. But anyway, he contacted him by email because he's actually had dinner with him, and he asked him if he wanted to join our group or to come up and at least look in on what we do. And so he may pop in at some point. He said he would do it. He would come up and take a look at us. So might be this time, might be in July, might be August, but you expect him to come in sometime.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Since we got you chatting already, Dan, what's up with you?
Well, I've been doing a couple of things. One of the things I've been working on my website. So let me share the screen so I can show you some of the stuff I'm doing. Let me see if I can do screen sharing. It's been a while since I've done that. Start screen sharing, entire screen, share. And let me know if you see. I don't think it's working. What's going on with it here? Let me try it again. I'm not having much luck today, guys.
We did see your Jitsi window for a minute there.
Yeah. I see I see that one window there.
I see the screen.
Okay.
It's got a whole bunch of weird looking people on it.
Yeah, we see Dan's website, Hey Mail.
You do? I don't see it. How come I can't see it?
Click on the Dan's website tab and it should be fine.
Dan's website tab. Where's that?
I see it at the very top of your screen sharing.
I don't. It says you are sharing your screen. See, entire screen, share. Okay. I don't know why this isn't working for me today.
Yeah, click on that.
Click there.
Wow.
Okay, I clicked there. I click it. What I'm doing is I'm clicking on another.
Everybody's. Yeah.
Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I see what I did wrong. All right. So anyway, I'm working on my website. I've got about 45 articles up here so far, and let me just bump up my volume a little bit. And so it's coming along. I've got some stuff off on the right-hand side here on the sidebar that I'm put up there. It only appears on the main screen here. So if I go to my latest article, which is benchmarking a storage device in Linux, it disappears. But if I come back here to the main, it comes back up again. I've got my search information here. And so I'm working on that and getting that going. It's coming along well. And been working on that. So the next thing I've been doing is let me come out here to, I've been working on something called Docker. And if you're not familiar with Docker, Docker is kind of like a virtualization in Linux, except it uses, it's a file system, really not a virtualization. That's not like a VM. And so it runs on the Raspberry Pi. So can you see my terminal screen right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to SSH into my Raspberry Pi. So it's at 192.168.1.125. And let me just put in the password. All right, so I'm SSH'd into it. And if I do an ls.lh, you can see there's the Docker folder. And what I did was I installed Docker. It's very easy. I installed Docker by just running the sudo apt install docker.io. So I use that command to install Docker. Once I got that up and running, and then I installed another package called Docker Compose using the same command. So I'm not going to do it again, but sudo apt install Docker Compose. Once I get those two packages up and running, then I just make directories on Docker. So I cd into Docker. So let me cd into Docker and run an ls.lh in there. And what I did was I set up a separate folder for every Docker container that I wanted to run. So I've got these 6 Docker containers. One of them is called Speed Test Tracker. And so what I did there was I CD'd into Speed Test Tracker. And then I run a listing of that. And what I did was I did a sudo nano docker compose.yaml. It's an empty file. And so when it's an empty file, then I go up here to the Docker Hub and I search for Speed Test Tracker. So let me do that. So Speed Test Tracker.
Inverter.
There it is. And it's on linuxserver.io. And so I come down here and it runs on the ARM64 architecture, which is what I need. And there's a Docker Compose file. And so what I do is I just take this file and I right click, copy it, paste it into this file here. So I'm going to do a sudo nano docker compose YAML. And so I paste it into that empty file and this is what results. Okay. And so I come down here and I had to make a couple of corrections. One of them is I had to change the time zone to my own time zone. I'll leave the PUID, the PGID alone. Leave the rest of this alone. And the only other thing I changed on this file, well, two other things, is I made this correction to give it the location of where I want the data to be stored. And then I come down here. This started out to be 8880, and I changed it since something is already running on 8880. I changed the internal port assignment for this particular application to 8980. Save the file. Just do it, saving the file, and then let me clear the screen. And then I just run a command called docker compose up -d. And what that does is it takes that Docker compose file. I have to be in this folder, where the Docker compose file resides. And I run that command, which tells it to bring Docker compose up and run it as a daemon in the background so that when I close the terminal, it doesn't stop running. So it runs 24/7. All right. So it's running at port 8980. And so let me just clear that out. Let me come out to where I can get to here, and I'm going to bring up so I can touch it. I'm going to do 192.168.1.125, 8980. It should bring up the login screen, and it did. So let's log into it. All right. And so to get the password, I'm going to have to come out and do this. It's not picking it up. I wanted to show you something that's happening. I have Spectrum Internet. Okay. What this particular speed test tracker application does is I've configured it to use two servers, one in Tennessee, one Spectrum server in Tennessee, and another Spectrum server in Asheville, which runs and I've configured it with cron to run an hourly speed test using those two servers at random. So it picks the fastest server it finds at the time it runs, and it runs a test of the broadband speed every hour. Currently, I'm pulling down 365.06 megabit per second down and 10.5 megabit per second up with a 35.22 millisecond latency. And this is what it looks like over time. Okay. It runs an upload test and graphically presents it to me. A download, this is the upload. Runs a ping, graphically presents that for me every hour. A jitter, does the jitter every hour. And then it does upload and download latency. Okay. I suspected that Spectrum was throttling my broadband speed, and this is proof of it. And if I go out and look at the last 24 hours rather, and bring that up, or last week rather, and look at it, you can see here that this is at 8 o'clock on May 25th to 8 o'clock on May 26th. It throttled my speed down, dropped it from 360 something down to 250 something. Again, at around 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it did the same thing. On the next day, did the same thing the next day, next day, next day, next day, and then last night. So it's been doing it every day for the last 7 days. I don't know if they're doing testing or if they do this for everybody that's a residential customer, or if they care. You know, it's during a time when it's 12-hour time frame from 8 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning. So I guess they would say they have the authority to do that because they give you the broadband speed at what you're paying for during normal business hours. And when they suspect you're not using it, they turn it down. But it has impacted something I've been working on. All right. So this is what this particular Docker container service does for me, which is very nice to have. One of the other things that I have is Docker container service is, let me go back. And I don't want to take up too much more time here, but let me CD back out of this and go LS/LH again. Oh, LS-LH. And I have one called Drupal, and Alan probably will like this when I show it to him. It's a Docker container. I haven't really set it up totally, but let me CD into Drupal, which is the folder, and do an LS/LH on that. And there's the Docker compose file I created. And so if I do a sudo nano of that Docker file, here it is. I pull that image down from Docker Hub, and it actually has two images. It has a Drupal 10 Apache image, and it has a Postgres 16 image, which is the database for Drupal. And here's the password for it. Okay. And the thing I want to show you is it's set up on internally on port 8780, which I configure here. All right. So let me close that file out. So 8780, if I come out here and go to 192.168.1.125, 8780, it brings me to the Drupal installation screen. So Alan, you'll appreciate this. This is the screen that you get when you go to run the setup for Drupal. And this is Drupal version 10.2.6. So when I configure this, I'm going to go through this. If I do a save and continue, it'll go through an installation process for my Drupal, and it will install a total Drupal installation on my Raspberry Pi in that Docker container. And I can run it and touch it and reach it and do whatever I want to with it. So I haven't done that yet, but that's what I can do. So anyway, let me get out of this. Get back to where I'm at, and let me stop sharing this screen so I can get back to the regular sessions here. So that's what I've been working on. Those two things primarily, Brent and guys. And let me turn this off. And haven't been working on anything else per se. And so I'm going to turn it over to next person. I'm done.
And what's going on?
And that's it. That's all I got.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alan, what do you have going on?
I'm still trying to deal with my Yodec digital signage, my screens that display information. One of the screens just keeps shutting down randomly for no reason. So the Yoda support people told me to, they thought it may have a bad sector on the SD card. So they instructed me to reflash the SD card. So the reason I'm mentioning this is it was kind of interesting how the methods you can reflash a card. The suggested way of doing it is you take a USB thumb drive and you download their image, and it's in compressed format, but you just put it on that thumb drive and you insert it in the Yodec player, which is actually a Raspberry Pi 4 single board computer. And then you reboot the Raspberry Pi. And so I did that, and comes up a display of just telling you not to power off don't disconnect the power, and it shows the progress of reinstalling their image. And anyway, that went very successfully. I mean, no hitches at all. When it finished updating the firmware, rebooted the thing, and it came up fine. So I was kind of impressed how they took a USB thumb drive and actually automated that process upon boot up when you recycle the power. And it would actually just look and determine that it actually had a valid image to load. And it did. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I was thinking that may be a methodology to use with other software or other operating systems, where you just insert it, boot it up, and it self-installs. That's pretty much what I've been up to, just dealing with various hardware, mainly shielded Ethernet cable issues, and just trying to get all my equipment running normally, and I also bought a Klein cable tester, and haven't used that yet, but that's got a bunch of features for testing all kinds of cables, and especially RJ45 Ethernet cables. So I'll use that to trace various cables in our system and find out what's going on with why my cables keep failing. That's pretty much it. Back to you, Brent. Anybody there?
Earth to Brent.
Yeah.
I guess we lost him. He's still on the screen here. He's muted though. Hello, Brent.
He's frozen.
There he goes.
All right. Okay, he's
frozen.
He's frozen in time.
My computer now has decided to crash twice.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully it'll stay on. If not, I'll probably just swap to my my laptop over here. I don't know that I have anything set up on it, but we'll figure it out. I assume Alan finished up. Sorry about
Yes.
that, Alan. Pete, what do you got going on?
Nothing with Linux. As I think I mentioned last month, we're in the process of getting fiber to the home, courtesy of the United States government, to rural and underserved areas. They finished laying the main cables. I believe they're going to start the actual running the fiber up to the homes, I think in the beginning of June, so pretty soon. Anyway, I got to thinking, what protocol do they use on fiber as compared to when I first started fiddling around with this stuff in the 70s? They started with, I think I was installing DECnet and then moved, what was the IBM version? Can't remember.
DECnet's not the protocol, though.
No, but that was all that existed at the time.
Yeah.
They were starting to develop the protocols.
What was the SNA?
What was the IBM version of DECnet? They had a name for it.
SNA.
Nah, can't remember. Anyway, so I started looking into what they're running on. And then they all moved up to Ethernet protocols.
Yeah.
And that's what they're using now. I said, well, what do they run over fiber? It's supposed to be so super fast. And lo and behold, they run Ethernet. Ethernet is the fastest protocol. It's been improved many, many times. And actually, I believe, can't remember the name of the IBM one.
Well, the thing is, Pete, the DSL protocol is PPPoE, and the cable protocol is ATM. I don't know what the fiber protocol is.
From what I could understand reading on it, it's Ethernet protocol.
Yeah, well, the other two are Ethernet protocols too.
Wasn't Token Ring an IBM
Yes.
thing? Was
Token
that it?
Ring, that's it. Yeah, that's
okay.
it.
Yeah. I was thinking that maybe
Couldn't
that's
remember.
Yeah,
I knew IBM had a hand in it, but I don't know how much.
Yeah,
You're right.
and
That predates me a few years.
It wasn't a anybody can use it. You had to, get a license to use it. So it never really caught on, and it went down the tubes just like DECnet did. But it lives on. Token Ring lives on. It's used in Linux, believe it or not. It's some of the places in Linux it uses Token Ring protocol.
Nothing wrong with it.
It also didn't scale well because you had to wait for that token to come back around to talk.
Right.
Yeah, but you didn't get any collisions.
Right.
So
It'd take you.
Yeah,
I mean,
at some point we realized collisions are just fine, and things are faster, despite them.
It's like saying you can swear on satellite radio. Well, yeah, that's because no one's listening anyway.
By the way, they had a free week of Sirius XM. I think it ends on the 3rd.
Shoot.
So if you've got a XM radio in your car, you can just tune it in and it'll work just fine for a couple more days. Like said, there's not that much on there.
Yeah, the truck has one, and I never signed up for it. It came with it, and it I get the begging letter in the mail every couple of months about that, or so.
You can get a device for your home, get Sirius FM in your home too.
I'm a boomer, and I still use the old terrestrial AM FM. So, well, boomer is a mindset anyway.
Well, we're getting close to launch.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. So back to you, Brett.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Leander, what you got going
on? This month has been really busy. I did finally get another Darktable YouTube video uploaded. I think that was this month. I missed last month because I was out of town. But work has been pretty busy. Doing HPC stuff. We, hired a couple of new helpers there and trying to wrangle young kids. The problem is they're not that much younger than me, but they're younger enough that they can hammer the caffeine and really power through stuff that I'm like, whoa, wait, what? Whoa. So I'm providing the now more calm and big picture directive stuff. And if I need something whipped up quick, fast, and in a hurry, it's like, okay, we need to do this. So, and my boss has been trying to help with that. But yeah, kind of realizing I'm kind of getting slow. Not a lot. I've been messing around with some BSD stuff again. Just out of, I found a Photo Prism, I think, runs in a Docker container on Linux. I use Podman just because Docker has done some, the Docker company has done some weird things with their licenses. They've done some things like HashiCorp where they have like this weird license. And so I run Podman, and getting that to work was not fun. So with Podman has become the Windows of the container world. Docker has become the Windows of the container world, where they expect Docker everywhere. And if you're using another container tool like Podman, that kind of is interchangeable, but doesn't really work exactly the same. So I started messing around. They actually have a free BSD port of this software. I was like, oh, I know how to do make install. That's easier. So I started messing with a VM there, and been doing that. Reworking my website a little bit. Are they actually launching, Pete, or are they?
Not yet. They're getting close. They're just sort of laying in there.
Yeah. Other than that, working on presentations, messing with some video stuff, messing with some. So it seems like there was something else I was doing, but I cannot remember. I also got promoted, not promoted. I don't know what the word is at the fire department. I'm now voted in the training officer. So I've been having to try to develop a firefighter training curriculum with online resources and stuff. And there weren't many of us that showed up, and I showed up and they were like, we need a training officer. I was like, so I'm trying to figure out how to run and do all that stuff. So, but yeah, not a lot going on other than prep for self. I'll be there Friday and Saturday. I think if you show up in person, it's free. And I think what Dan was talking about, there's a $5 remote attendee option if you'd rather go that route. But if you're near, I think Asheville's closer to Charlotte than I am. So if you're near to the area, you can just wander in, I think, any of the 3 days. And I think it's free. They have like a registration system. I'm not sure if they really enforce that or not. I've always gone.
Leander, did they accept some of your talks?
They accepted all of them. So I've got 3 talks on Saturday. I'm like half that show at this point, I feel like. I've got a new and improved Darktable talk. talking about some of the new features, and then I'm going to do like a live shoot and edit where people can bring their laptops. I'll use my camera to take a picture, and I'm working on a system to where I can just share the raw file out over from my laptop, and they can download it onto their laptop and then use the software to edit it. I'm going to be doing like headshots for people for like LinkedIn and stuff. So you can come in, you can get like a headshot, you know, and then we can edit it in Darktable, and you can export it as a JPEG and use it. And then I'm doing a third talk, which is more of a cultural one. It's called "You Use Linux, Nobody Cares." It's kind of about some of the things I've seen in like Linux evangelism communities and whatever else. And it's kind of memey, like it's kind of more youth. Not really youth, but it is. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to talk to younger people. But it's more about like some of the behavior I've seen in the Linux community over 20 years, how I think that hampers growth and things. That's the one I want to do. If you guys are okay with it, after we're done with the roundtable, I could do like a little demo of it, just to see, just to time myself. It's not done yet, but I've got about 15 slides. But yeah, so that's kind of all I've been up to.
Yeah,
Really looking forward to self. Yeah.
Leander, I was able to finally get the ticket for the all access thing for the web. I had to use my phone to do it, but I've got my ticket. So I saw your sessions up there, so I'll be looking at those.
All right, thanks. I think that they usually put them after the show on their YouTube channel. I don't think they live stream them to YouTube, but after like a week after or something, they're up there. So if you can't make it, you can see them there. But I'm not sure. I think that you need to register to attend, but it's free, unless you're a vendor or I think they charge the vendors, but I've always kind of gone as a speaker, and so I get the free food and everything. So, but yeah, launch has been scrubbed.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
What?
Been scrubbed.
Holy mackerel.
Oh,
5 minutes to go?
No, 20 seconds.
Less than that.
Wait, maybe the astronaut woke up from his nap and was like, "Wait, who made this thing? Crap, abort." So,
I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
it's like, but I'm looking forward to self getting down there and networking. I need to get out. I'm trying to do some more branching out and some side work like everyone else. I'm looking at retirement funding and some other life changing things, and I'm like, yeah, I probably need to do some side work to start saving some more money, just because food and fuel and living costs have just gone up, and my pay has been pretty stagnant for quite a long time. So, but I don't want to leave because I've got the benefits. So, and the state just changed it to where if you get a new position with the school system, they've really pared down the benefits. Like, I don't want to apply for a new job either. So I'm looking at getting some side stuff going again. But that's kind of been it. Just all over the place. Sorry for the random chatter. Sorry, that sucks that the launch got scrubbed. So, yeah.
Well, it says it's scrubbed with 4 minutes left to go. So I don't know if it's totally scrubbed or if it's just stopped. But I don't know.
Well, scrubbed is usually they're done.
Yeah, it's usually done. Yeah.
If there's built-in pauses for like systems checks and stuff like that. If they were just pausing, it would have just said this is a built-in stop or something.
Yeah.
So.
I'm breaking in, Rusty, asking. There's background chatter that I think is coming through one of the open mics. I thought I noticed earlier when Pete's mic went off, there was less of the background voices that I'm hearing. But anyway, right now Alan is on, Brent is on, my microphone is on. I'm not sure if I'm hearing the chatter now. Pete is off.
I usually mute the person everyone except for the person who was talking. But since we were talking about the launch, hearing the launch chatter in the background seemed vaguely appropriate. But I certainly can Well, it sounds like people have muted themselves. I certainly am willing to continue muting everybody else as I typically do if it's obnoxious. Apparently it was, because now he's gone. I don't know what I said to offend him. I'm sure he'll be right back.
Rusty is not a happy man.
I don't know what I'd do if I saw Rusty upset. I don't think I've seen that happen.
No.
Rusty, you good? All right, were we done with you, Leander? I do think there'll be ample time to circle back if you wanted to give your talk a test run.
Yeah, like I said, it's not finished, and I'm actually still kind of editing it here and there. But yeah, we can give it a little test run. At least then we could say we had a presentation this month, right?
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Gene.
Let's see. I've got, last month I said I put the new flavor of Ubuntu, the 24.04 long-term support version on my home computers. And for the past several weeks, I've put it on several other computers for people in kind of my little circle that are less computer literate even than me, which is pretty illiterate. But I think I installed it on 3 or 4 other machines and learned a bit as I went along. It has been the install has been simplified greatly, but there's some things that if you miss can cause trouble. And there are some things that I noticed too that are like weeding out older hardware, I think. Like the disk format, what is it? They want you to be, I think, is it GPT is the newer standard as opposed to the older one, which I can't remember now. But there are a few things like that, which is interesting. And I guess you could go back if you had older hardware and pick up one of the older distributions that would still give you plenty of room on it. I don't know the other stuff, at least. And there again, what I'm installing is Xubuntu. What I don't know if there's any thing to be gained, though, by continually following which I do, which is about every 2 years, the long-term support releases. I don't know if there's a whole lot to be gained if you're just a casual user. I would think patches and things like that would be, depending on what you use, might be necessary. But if you don't use like a bash, or if you don't use a blah blah, then is it really necessary if you're just like an hour a day or less user, whether it makes sense to continually keep rolling over your releases? I'd be interested to hear thoughts on that. But the other thing I wanted to say was that it's so easy now that it's like a walk in the park. You don't have to really do a whole lot of thinking or planning to get your distribution upgraded to the latest and greatest. So let's see, I guess that, and I was messing around. I had, in digging out some things for this estate sale that I'm going to be involved in, I found some old hard drives. They were IDE versus SATA hard drives. And what is PATA? I don't even know what that is. But I don't think there were any of those, but I did have one that was a dead duck. But of the 8, one was, okay, Leander says same as parallel ATA. So in doing that, I said, well, I'll just go back on these old drives and see what's on there. And it's kind of like a walk back through time. If anybody has ever done that, it's a little comical and a little ridiculous, but I walked back through the various Windows flavors. Whatever, Dan, I don't know the correct terminology. What it said. Oh, the other thing is I had to buy a little adapter because I don't have anything that'll run an IDE stripe. Haven't had any of those for years, but yeah. But I went online and for about $10 bought a little adapter that you can stick in that goes into your USB, and you can stick into an old IDE drive, and then jerry rig a power cable for it because they were separate. I mean, they're still separate on SATA, but so then I took a walk back through time and looked at these old hard drives, and it's fairly interesting. There were a couple of things that I called out just to save them for in a modern format. Most of the stuff was unneeded, unusable, uncared about, reject stuff, just random stuff. It was interesting, though, to go back through. I think my first Ubuntu distro was like 10 maybe, or something like that. And so we're up to 24 now. The first Windows that I encountered was an XP, and then it went, I don't think I had any Windows 95, but XP, then was it ME, and then Windows, whatever, maybe Vista and 7, whatever. But anyway, just a walk through all those Windows things and how pretty much lame they seemed compared to the bloatware that's the current version of Windows. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. I'd be curious to hear anybody's other opinions that would lead me down a different path, but kind of enjoyed that look and walk back through time. So that's it for me, Brent.
Thanks, Gene. I tend to get rid of things pretty readily, so I never end up with those walks down memory lane other than through other people's stuff, which can be interesting. Old technology, I followed it the entire time to some extent, maybe with small gaps here and there. But yeah, it's we've come so far.
Well, but and also since I've been using Ubuntu, my home directory has pretty much stayed the same. And all of those Windows things, because the backup on Windows was such crap for such a long time that I never got any backups on that. But I just back up my home directory, and keep going. And in all those years, never had any malware to speak of that I know of, any spyware, any crap stuff to get into my system since 2010, say. So anyway, that's just that's just a thought.
Speaking of malware, I don't know if you guys, anybody have a Mac machine? My wife's got a Mac Airbook. My sister's got a Mac. And I got a call. She got a virus on her Mac machine, which, you know, in the past you haven't had to worry about it as a Mac user, but now you do. So she put Norton on it. And so I got a call from the church a couple days ago. Had to make a trip up to the church to take malware off of one of the Mac user church computers. And that's really a shame because, you know, you didn't used to have to do that for a Mac. So, but anyway.
What's the angle on that malware? How are they monetizing it or taking advantage of it?
I really don't know. I mean, I put Norton on it and it scanned it and got rid of it. I really don't even know what it was. It just got rid of it, but it was just a simple malware. It just popped a screen up on the user's computer saying, you've been infected, you know, and of course she freaked out. Gave my wife a call, and my wife said, "Can you run up to the church and take care of it?" So I just ran up there and took care of it.
I've been having persistent issues with my aunt, who's getting up there in years with these fake antiviruses, and trying to walk her through the phone. I don't know how many Indian scammers she's been through the last 6 months. It's getting bad. So I'm kind of looking at like Windows S or something, one of those like really, or an iPad for her, something that's super locked down. But I discovered Windows actually has a remote. That was another thing I was bringing up. Has a remote help feature built in. So if you have a Microsoft ID, you can just share Microsoft IDs. I can log into her from a Windows VM, log into her machine, and see exactly what she's seeing. But she had some fake McAfee branded. It was, I had the McAfee branding, but it was fake thing on there telling her she had 670 some viruses. Sorry, that made me think of that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to scare her into paying them some sum of money in
Yeah.
Bitcoin. But it's the Mac side. We see it a lot. I've got a Mac, and we see. I mean, there's malware out there. It's just function of popularity as Apple stuff has gotten more popular. They've become a target. You know, it was for years. It was kind of security through obscurity. So.
Yep. Fortunate I haven't gotten any malware or viruses in Linux, though. That's good.
They are out there. Yeah,
though. They're out there.
Almost got one. There was one a guy had been working on for 2 years as a contributor to Linux. He almost got it snuck in, and one of the cyber people discovered it by accident. It was going to be released as an update.
All right. You all done, Gene? All right. Thanks, Gene. When you first came on, your name was up, and my brain is broken, and I can't think of it. But our fellow Jitzer,
Sam.
Please, what do you have going on?
Well, I have just bought a house in the Asheville area, and after I got to Asheville, I met Rusty, and Rusty suggested that I might, want to try out this group and see what's going on. I don't have a lot of experience with what is the operating the Linux, but I did use it for a little while. I had a PC that was having trouble, and I'm not sure exactly what the trouble was. I couldn't figure it out, and it was getting kind of old. And a guy came along and he said, well, he said you could put Linux on it. So he installed Linux on it, for a little while, and it seemed to work for a little while. And then eventually I think it was a hardware problem, or, it was in the firmware, or I don't know what it was. But eventually that collapsed. And so there went Linux, and then I bought a new PC with Windows again. And I haven't gone back to Linux. But I used Unix in the good old days at work. I worked for Bell Labs once upon a time, and then it became AT&T. And so we used all kinds of Unix boxes, and then eventually I was too far away from hands-on Linux work when they started using Linux at AT&T. But it's definitely interesting to hear all your perspectives on various things. Today, the most serious work that I do on the computer is I maintain a music player called the MIT player for folk dancing at where I folk dance, and I'm the computer guy who has to keep installing new versions of the MIT player, which I think also runs on Linux. And then I use a program called Tax Slayer with AARP when I do taxes for people back here in New Jersey. So, but anyway, it's and I have, when I was at AT&T, I did Ethernet access provisioning, to the network using gigabit Ethernet, and then 10 gigabit Ethernet, and eventually 100 gigabit Ethernet. And I don't know where they are today, but I've retired, so I've lost track of the higher speeds. And I messed around a little bit with ordering and provisioning of service to business customers, and I have a lot of memories of 38 years with AT&T, and I'm now retired. And I can tell you that retirement benefits, don't kill yourself trying to secure retirement benefits from the corporate world, because you'll only be disappointed. So just save your money. That's all I got to say.
I'm one of the last ones. I got grandfathered in on the decent state retirement. So I've got about, depending on how much sick time I use, I think I've got about 10 or so years before I could start cashing in on that. But yeah, nowadays new hires basically get the corporate world treatment, where it was like, we'll match you on a TIRA CREF account, or whatever. It's not that great, but I've got that thing where they kind of like a pension. So,
Sam, what part of Asheville do you live in? I live in Asheville.
Hawk Creek.
That's where I live. Hawk
Yeah.
Creek. Yeah. East Asheville, Hawk Creek.
Yep. And we're only there part-time, so we're spending a month in Asheville, and then we go back to New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back in September for another month.
Oh, okay.
At least that's the way it's working right now, but things may change. It all depends upon my wife's schedule, taking care of her parents. She's got parents who live in Black Mountain in a place called Highland Farm.
Yeah, very familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. And she's got a brother in Swannanoa.
Yep.
So.
Hey, Sam.
Yep.
Where did you work for Bell Labs, and when? I worked for them I started in New York and then got moved out to Whippany in '61.
Okay.
I was with them for 8 years. Where did you work, and what years?
Well, I started in 1979, and I was supposed to be in Homedale, but in those days, Homedale was under construction, so they moved. So I started actually in a place called West Long Branch. It was a satellite location right across from the Monmouth Park racetrack.
Huh, okay.
And then once Homedale was expanded back in about probably 82 or so, 83, I moved into Homedale, and I was in Homedale until after the split between Lucent Technologies and AT&T.
Right.
And then originally AT&T was going to keep Homedale, but in the end, AT&T had to move out of Homedale because they couldn't move the nuclear material out of Homedale. So AT&T took Middletown. So I worked in Middletown from November of 98 till I retired in 2017.
Okay. Wow.
In 1979, Sam, I was in Naval Supply Corps School in Athens, Georgia, getting ready to go to my first aircraft carrier.
Wow. Well, yeah, Bell Labs was a good old place for a bunch of years, but you know, the whole game kept changing and changing and changing, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm lucky I stuck it out.
Yep. They used to have a museum at the headquarters in Murray Hill. I have no clue where that wound up or if it's even still in existence. But you could go in and see the Telstar satellite and all kinds of weird stuff that they were building or had built back in the 60s and 70s.
Well, they're getting ready to abandon Murray Hill.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard that a couple a couple months ago they were getting ready to relocate.
And the old Bell Labs Homedale building, which was a very impressive glass box,
Yep.
was abandoned quite a while ago, and it got repurposed, and now it's sort of it's open for everybody to just go in, and it's kind of on the first floor. Well, on the second floor, it's a shopping mall kind of thing, and then most of the businesses are on the upper floors. But the retired folks like me like to go back and just go there and stroll the grounds or stroll the building and eat lunch there and enjoy life and watch the
Right.
kids in the Montessori school, roll around on the grass carpeting in the atrium.
Did you ever hear of the telephone pole farm out in Chester, New Jersey?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I guess I never went to see it. I never really had to climb a telephone pole, but in the later years, eventually AT&T was bought by SBC, and then
Yes.
after
Southwest
SBC
Bell.
took over and renamed itself, they periodically would send me to for training classes to get ready for a strike assignment. And so I took ladder climbing. I studied ladder climbing, and I had to go. I was assigned at one point. I had one assignment where I had to train to do cable maintenance. Twisted pair cable maintenance, and I had to learn how to climb a ladder to get up and splice cable wire together.
Good skill.
Sent me out to Detroit, and I learned how to climb down into manholes safely, and all kinds of great unforgettable skills.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you know that Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, but do you know who Alexander Graham Pulaski was?
Alexander Graham Pulaski?
Mm-hmm.
I know about a General Pulaski, but I don't know who.
Alexander Graham Pulaski was the first telephone pole. Joke, joke, joke.
And I also did. I also had a couple of assignments doing central office work. So I learned how to run wires on a distributing frame, twisted pair wires on a distributing frame.
Yeah. That was when they used relays.
Well, thanks. Say again.
I didn't get that last thing.
Pete, could you repeat?
Oh, I think that in those frames, I think that was when they used relays. That was before the ESS.
Yeah, well, they had relays in some of those old offices.
Yeah.
Early in my career, they sent me to Bell of Pennsylvania for a month of learning the telephone business. And during that month in Pennsylvania, they asked us if we wanted to see the cutover of a new 5ESS switch. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? So at midnight, Saturday night midnight, I went to a central office where they were cutting over a new 5ESS digital switch. And they had the secretaries and the craft people in the office standing at the distributing frame, and all the twisted pair wires were bundled, and they had wire cutters.
Oh,
So
wow.
at 1 a.m. when the cutover, and they had everything dual wired to the old switch and the new switch. And so when the new 5ESS was going to take over, all the people in the office had wire cutters, and they would cut the wires, the bundled wires. They were bundled about like this, and they would cut the wires to cut off the connections to the old analog switch. And it was
Wow.
it was something I never forgot.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if they realized they were cutting their jobs too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, ultimately, I guess that may be true.
AI runs it now.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Who do we got? Rusty, are you back live again?
Hey, yeah, interesting sort of branch discussion coming from Sam. The Alumni Association of Bell or AT&T is, well, we don't have Ed in this group, so there's at least 4 members of that Alumni Association. I find it interesting hearing the reference to being cross-trained as a desk employee at AT&T, or sort of a indoors employee, being cross-trained to climb telephone poles. And Sam referred to it as the strike, something like the strike provision or contingency. And I've been reading my way up from the Constitution and some old, history. I'm going through Howard Zinn's sort of alternative history of the U.S. and I've come through the Jacksonian era and everything pre-Civil War and now post-Civil War, and this sits at the breakfast table, and I'm really struck by the late 80s, late 1800s, when they would not, a corporation wouldn't have strike breakers that were cross-trained. They would just be bringing in fresh employees from outside, along with Pinkertons armed with strike-breaking clubs, and then if that failed, then they would call the governor and have the militia brought in locally there was so many levels of and strikes were just massive sort of word of mouth organization that were in the thousands, and it was a really precarious time, but it was the first time where of power, but there are not as many examples of where a corporation runs into organized action of its employees. Well, we witnessed it. We've seen some of that. I think Amazon warehouse organizations, that sort of thing. I don't have a lot of other technical things, and I'm kind of interested to move on to hear Leander's preparing talk. The talk that he says is a cultural observation. So I'll sign off to whoever's next, probably Larry.
Rusty, before you go, did you get my email?
I did, yes.
Okay,
the offer.
right. I just wondered. Yeah, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, when I get off, when I get out on a limb, I may be calling you for help.
Sure, sure. Happy to.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rusty. Yeah, Larry, what you got going on?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'll just try to be brief. One thing I was going to say was I got another desktop. It's actually a gateway out of a dumpster. I don't know really why I did that, but it had like one cover off one side, and I kept looking at it. Do I really want to bother with another one? And it's probably 10 years old, and I finally it's pretty light, mostly air inside of it, but processing and so forth. Board. And I plugged it in, and it beeped. So I unplugged the SIMs, pushed them all back in, and tried it again, and Windows 7 booted up on the thing. So it's probably 10 years old. I guess it's back in the old days too. But it kind of just amazes me the way things are thrown away. I haven't really found anything wrong with this. It's got, 3 gigahertz quad core Intel processor. That's what we throw away these days. 500 gig hard drive and 8 gigabytes of RAM. And it's not a laptop, so it doesn't have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which is in fashion these days, I guess, but it's still back compared to the old days of early first generations of PCs with earlier Windows, even Windows XP. I mean, this thing, I put MX 23.1 on it. It seems to work fine. I don't find anything wrong with it. People just put it in the dumpster.
Is that Larry? I think you found Julian Assange's laptop.
Not a laptop, but it just kind of blows me away. I mean, I looked up Gateway doesn't really exist anymore, and I guess they were bought out by Acer, and they kind of disappeared, and there's no support and all that. But still, 3 gigahertz quad core processor, we just throw in the dumpster and it works. I mean,
you find any Bitcoin wallets on there?
Any what?
Bitcoin wallets on there?
Well, I can probably. I haven't been running a Windows 7 on it.
It's a sleeper laptop.
I know, it's just like, wow, why do you throw something like this? But it's not just computers people are throwing away. There's other stuff they throw away in dumpsters too that kind of blows me away. Children's toys and things. But anyway, I won't go on this soapbox anymore. I'll let Leander take over, and he can straighten us all out about whatever he has to say.
The only thing I would say about the found computers I've got a number of vintage machines. Actually got an old power book I'm taking apart up there now, but people throw away stuff and they don't wipe their stuff, and possession is 9/10 of the law. So I would probably take the hard drive out of that at least and shoot it or burn it before. I've had some stuff where I've had to turn things over to cops before. So
Seriously, yeah.
like just recycling machines. So I would, take the hard drive, deban it at the very least, and replace it with one. But because people don't wipe their machines and are into some weird stuff. Anyway, so.
Well, I should say too that those old hard drives that I had, I wrote deeds to all of them before I'm going to sell them.
Yep.
Yep. You should always wipe your drives before you sell them.
Might be kitty porn or something on it. You never know.
Well, even just weird. I mean, not even some of it's not even illegal. It's just like I didn't know that existed. Okay, next we're but yeah, some of it, yeah, there has been some illegal type stuff. When I worked in tech support, especially, that came up a couple of times where we were recovering data off a hard drive or something, and that was So with the old used computer, I always say very minimal, deban the hard drive. Probably the best thing is actually destroy the hard drive, wipe it, and like physically destroy it and recycle the e-waste, and then replace it with a known good SSD. And if it's that new 10 years ago, it should have SATA, and you can Amazon Newegg for like $30 or something. You can get a 500 gig SSD these days, and that will just like that is. They say you can't buy time, but SSDs are definitely buying time because they are so much faster. Your cheapest crucial SSD is going to be many times faster than your fastest hard drive, especially of that era. So I would say spending 20 or probably more like $30 or $40 on an SSD for it's probably worth it. Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Larry?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Well, I guess that comes to me. I'll try to be brief as well. I have been. It's ridiculous how little Linux I've been doing. Usually, I can at least talk about some work things, but I've been so deep into moving us to Intune and Defender, which somehow became my project. I really thought, like when we started with this was going to be mostly another team to do the Intune piece of it, and hopefully other people on my team to do the Defender piece of it. But it became the Brent show, as some things tend to do, and been very educational, but a very, very Windows focused several months for me. That being said, I did go into my Linux machine to issue a certificate, because that is something I always do on a Linux box, is do all my OpenSSL commands, because if I had a habit more than anything else, I could spin it up on Windows box too. I am thinking about making major improvements to our certificate authority, which might down the road mean an offline CA running on Linux. Basically, just essentially a hard drive sitting in a safe that gets booted periodically to sign things, but otherwise, its job is to be the secret thing in a safe. Could do that on Windows too. I don't know why I would, when OpenSSL could do the job. Yeah, so I not a lot of stuff. Clearly, I need to do something with this box, because it keeps crashing every time I try to run Jitsi. It doesn't crash a lot otherwise, but it hates Jitsi most of all. But I'll leave it at that, and so we can get to Leander's presentation.
Okay, I guess we're ready for me. This is very I'm still working on it. It's not finished. Let's see, window. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just kind of working on it as I go, trying to finish it up. But this is a talk I was inspired by some events that I witnessed online a few years ago, but I kind of been feeling some stuff about this for a while, so I decided to put something together. I made a YouTube video a number of years ago similar to this called "Don't Use Linux," going over like, hey, Linux can't be everything to everyone. It's something that that you kind of have to be of the right mind to use. So this kind of starts with that. So you guys all know me. I don't need to go to introductions here. I'd put a little introduction for self. Hi, I'm Leander, but you guys know who I am. But I have been using Linux for probably about 20 years and BSD and stuff. So, disclaimer, this presentation is designed to make you think. It may in fact have incidental depictions of attitudes or behaviors you see or had. It contains wojaks, anime, memes, and other things of ill repute. If it makes you mad, good. Having self-reflection leads to personal growth. That being said, I am an idiot and no one should listen to me about anything. Just a disclaimer there. We are going to get into some cultural commentary on the Linux community. I'm going to pick at some things, and I hope you don't get offended, but maybe it'll make you think about things. We've all seen this behavior. In fact, it's so common, it's basically a meme online. The "I use Arch, by the way" meme. People see Linux users coming and they're like, "Oh God, not this again. I just want to be left alone." I'm going to talk about why that happens, how we can fix it, and the negative effects it has on growth and community, and how it makes us look bad. The first thing you should ask yourself is, do we really want growth? I've always kind of been of the impression that gatekeeping is not necessarily a bad thing. I think when it comes from a racial or other religious thing, yeah, that's bad. But sometimes communities form around a central set of ideas, and you need to be able to say, hey, you have to conform, or you have to kind of at least align a little bit with this central set of ideas to participate. Linux is not Mac OS. Linux is not Windows. I don't think it should be. I don't want Linux to become a clone of Mac OS or Windows. If I want to use those things, well, I'll go buy those things. The mass, and I use this picture. I sometimes resemble this guy, but the masses out there, maybe that's not for them. Maybe this tool isn't for them. It doesn't need to be everything to everyone. Like I said, it's a specific set of tools aimed at a specific set of use cases for a specific set of people. You need to have a goal in mind. This infinite growth thing kind of comes from our economic ideas of like things have to grow. If it's not growing 100 times every quarter, it's failing. And I'm like, yeah, but Linux is consistently kept at 2% of the computer using population. The computer using population as a whole is growing, so Linux is growing at a pretty steady clip. It's attracting some like-minded people, and I think it's good to keep it within that goal of having a free Libre ecosystem with people who have a similar mindset. I see a lot of times on photography stuff, it's like, I would switch to Linux if Adobe would port Creative Cloud to Linux, and I'm like, I don't want it. I don't need it. Like, no, let's not waste time on trying to get Adobe to do that. Let's try to instead develop our own free open source kind of workflow there. I don't want this stuff, and I don't want that kind of thought process invading this kind of community, even though it's not really kind of a community. And that's to say we have our own kind of problems to deal with. I have someone in my life who has a disability, and she's has to have accessibility tools to use a computer. Linux is severely lacking on that, so even if she could want to use it, she can't, because of those things. So we need to kind of look at some of core problems, I think, and use energy there without trying to go out and make Linux everything to everyone. We got to serve every use case and petition these closed source companies to port their tools over. We've all seen what happens to things where the lowest common denominator takes over. look at, McDonald's. Do we want to be McDonald's? Do we really? Do we want to be the cheap? Well, I guess that's not the cheap. What's the cheap thing now? I don't know. Is there a cheap thing? Anyway, but do we really want to be the lowest common denominator? I'm not saying we have a hostile environment. I'm saying we need to be hostile to new users, but I think you need to ask yourself if you are chasing the right goal, and not just being like, oh, more is better, when necessarily maybe more isn't better. And to that effect, look at Apple over the last 20 years. They've had this exclusivity marketing that's really worked well. Oh, you have an Apple product. That means you're one of the chosen ones. And maybe, so somebody's like coming up to you, like asking you, maybe instead of getting all excited and going, oh, I use Linux, you should use it too, and like going all full blast on it, you should go, well, I use Linux, but maybe it's not your thing. Maybe that'll, there was actually some study years ago that says you do attract more flies with vinegar. So maybe that's an approach. But you should really ask yourself, do you really want our community to be everything to everyone? Do we really want this to grow infinitely, or do we want to target it and aim it at people who have a similar goal, who have similar thought processes, who have who have who really are coming here of their own will to do their own to further the goal of free and open source software. To that effect, if you decide, yes, I do want growth, everyone who thinks you try, yeah, that's true. If you do decide, well, yeah, I still want growth, well, let's go over some do's and don'ts. I'm going to start with the negative first. And stop interacting with e-celebrities now. Don't do it. I'm talking the Linus Tech Tips, the Epos Vox, the YouTubers, the Instagram people. They will absolutely provoke you for content. This is what happened with the Linux. What kind of provoked this thing with me a number of years ago was it was all over the Linux mailing lists and the Linux forums. Was Linus Tech Tips decided he was going to use Pop OS and couldn't get it to work, and basically just like smeared Linux the whole time. And people took the bait. That's his job, is to get clicks and to get views. And people were in the forums hand wringing and consternation. And he did something really dumb, like apt gave him this huge warning, hey, this will uninstall your whole system. And he said yes. And he was like, oh, Linux is garbage, look what it let me do. That's his job. Do not touch the poop. E-celebs are poop. No, flush it. Wash your hands. Go outside. Remain. Do not touch them. No large gaming, creative, YouTube streamer is ever switching. And it just makes the user base looks unhinged. They can go, we can poke the Linux users and get some clicks because they'll get mad. Just ignore them. Do not touch the poop. Stop interacting with them. And I've said this before, if I have a kid, I can handle them being any orientation, any religion they want to be. I'll still love them. If they decide they want to be a YouTube influencer, I'm asking them to leave the house. These are the lowest of the low people, in my opinion. Do not interact with them. Next, and this is something else I've discovered over the years, is that technical and creative users are often the most difficult to switch. People think, oh, you use a computer for a very technical or creative, you're obviously something, you're smart, you should use Linux because you're smart, and this is something that will give you more control of your thing. Wrong, bucko. No. These people their machine is a tool to do a job. They're making a video, they're building a circuit in LabVIEW, they're AutoCADing some sort of structure. They have a art or a technical pursuit that they are using a tool for. You don't have 1 million subs or whatever, Dan. I don't think you count. They are very much heavily invested in this thing. Time is money, and if they spent 20 years or 10 years or 5 years learning this tool to do this job, that is a time investment, and that's also a money investment. Them having to switch is going to cause a lot of that. I mean, when I switched from Lightroom and Adobe products to Darktable, it was a huge undertaking, and it took a while for me to really get to where I could translate and learn this stuff. And I had to learn different approaches to color science. I was lucky enough to have an outside job where I could do that. But if I was shooting for my supper, I'd probably still be on Adobe. So, I mean, that's something to consider. And another thing I have really noticed is that they will froth at the mouth at any slight difference. And I'm not even talking insufficiency. I'm not talking, oh, the GIMP doesn't have this feature. It's the feature's in a slightly different place, or it works a slightly different way. They're like, to them, whatever tool they learned in their nascent career is the Bible, is the gospel. Anything that's different is wrong. It doesn't matter. It maybe is better or produces better results. It's just wrong. So I wouldn't waste your time. And again, just makes the user base look unhinged to chase these people. I don't know what else to say here. They are the most difficult crowd. I would put Linus Tech Tips in this, and those kind of YouTubers, is that they are doing a job they're doing a job of making a thing, and to them the tool is this is a tool. A lot of tech influencers are also chasing sponsorships, and Debian's not giving you a sponsorship, whereas Microsoft and Steam, well, I don't think Steam really does it, but and other vendors will. So, it's kind of a financial thing too on that side. That's more the influencer thing. But and again, there's also support. In a commercial environment, Autodesk and Adobe and those companies all offer support. And if something goes wrong, you aren't spending hours kind of digging through forum content. So, again, these are probably not the right people to approach about switching. I have had bad reactions just even sideways mentioning to these people about using that. I use something different myself. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm with other photographers. They're like, we really like your work. What's your post process? I kind of skate around it just because you don't use Adobe. What? It doesn't go the way you think it does. Like being different, things that stick out get nailed down. So don't go there with them. Most people don't like being told that their tool is wrong. See basically any other hobby. Like look at Xbox, PS3, PS4, PS5 forums. Look at photographers, Nikon versus Canon. Look at any other professional or hobby environment. And people do not like or they argue about it. They don't like hearing that, oh, I don't like your tool, it's wrong. And they don't want to hear it. It makes you look unhinged, like a fanboy or a nut job. You just don't be that person. Go out. This is again seriously. Just go outside, touch some grass. It's fine. Like it. You're not going to win arguments with these people. It's not really something you should even approach, I think. So we talked about the don'ts a little bit. Now what do we do? I want to bring up a slide of things that I consider to be masterful works of art and or engineering. The Sistine Chapel. Anybody know what kind of paintbrush, what kind of paints, what brand he used to paint that? Anybody care? Saturn V engine. I know anything about the metal presses or the CNC tooling they used? No, they just look at the result. Ansel Adams. We know he used a film camera. Don't really know kind of what brand. We know a little bit, we know through his educational materials, through the process, but the tool wasn't important. Hagia Sophia. I mean, we know it was made of stone. We don't know what brand of chisel they used. We, autumn, we don't know what the Holy Roman Empire's chisel of choice was. We just know it was this thing that was built, and it's admired today. The Great Wave. We know it was an ink print. We know he probably used some kind of thing, but we don't know what shop he went to and bought. Did he sit there and argue with people about what this was? No. These are all masterful works of art and engineering that stand on their own merits. Stop being a tool and use one. Okay? Ultimately, the technical users are somewhat correct. I say somewhat because I think that there is some merit, especially in today's age. of looking at the licensing and the lock-in behind your tool. I do think that the Linux people and the BSD people have it where, you need to look at the freedom side of it. But again, these are tools to build things, to do things, to understand the human condition, to push the human boundaries. You need to go out and do things. Like, yeah, if you want Linux to get big, go build your chapel, go build your cathedral, go build your whatever, go do your art, and let people come in and admire it. And you'll get that 5 or 10% of the people who admire your work going, I would really like to do that. And they'll probably get sucked into the ecosystem. They'll go, man, that's really great. How did they do that? And then they'll come in and then they'll grow it, and they will be the more driven people, I guess, than your average user. Leave behind the legacy. At the end of the day, you're sitting there tweaking your desktop 600 times and posting screenshots of it is entertaining, I guess, to some people, but it doesn't really matter. People aren't going, when you pass away, they're going to look at your art, your writing, your building, what things you build, and what kind of person you were. If you were the annoying Linux fanboy, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember, hey, he built this cool circuit, or he built this rocket motor, or he took this photo. Ansel Adams in particular was famous as using his car for a tripod. Like, to some extent, the tool didn't really matter. It was the end result. Right. So use Linux. Step outside of the technical field a little bit of the IT world and use it to build something that impresses people. That is something that's beautiful, or something that's technically amazing, right? That will attract people. Ultimately, a tool is there to do a job. I'm not suggesting you pull a Hunter S. Thompson and take your laptop out in the snow and shoot it, but it's a tool. It should be used. I'm more of the mindset of that, my tools take care of me, and if I take care of my tools, they'll continue to take care of me, but I don't polish them. I use them. I give them a hot supper and put them away wet. Like, you've got to use these things to do work. So instead of sitting there polishing your configs for your i3 or your Conky or whatever and pasting neofetch to things, go out and write a book. Go out and draw some art. Go out and write a program that does something useful for somebody. Like, that is the thing that will get people in the door. There are places where being loud and annoying, I think, is useful. Companies and or governments. This is where numbers counts, particularly with companies. Your Dells, your Lenovos, your HPs, your Frameworks, Toshibas and stuff. If you want to see Linux support in your hardware, where you can just go buy a Linux laptop out of the box and have it work, this is where you need to go and say, I use Linux, look at me, because they're looking at numbers and they're going, hey, we sold 10,000 Linux laptops last month. It's worth continuing, versus we didn't sell any. It's not worth continuing. The same thing with governments. I think this is where the specialty knowledge, that being involved with the Linux ecosystem and the inherent sort of awareness of open source and privacy concerns and locked in walled gardens comes into play. As pertains recently to the TikTok ban. I don't necessarily disagree that TikTok's is not a positive thing, but the feds aren't banning it because they're worried about your privacy. They're banning it because they can't get a data sharing deal like they can out of Mark Zuckerberg. This is where that kind of knowledge that comes from hanging out in this community is important, and pestering your Congress critter or getting involved with organizations like the EFF is helpful. And this is where being loud is useful. Non-technical users, oh gosh, they're so much easier to switch. My mother-in-law was a Linux user and did not know it. So as long as it's a web browser, they're fine. You think about it, music is through a web browser these days. Most people use something like Spotify or something that works in a browser. Google Docs, Microsoft 365 works in a browser, all of that stuff. You look at the the Google Chromebook, as bad as it is a huge success story for this reason, and it's Linux under the hood. Nobody knows and nobody cares because the people who use it just need the web browser. These people have often, they are more likely to mold themselves around the machine's workflow than expect the machine to meld to theirs. They are not overly technical, so they don't understand usually some of the UI things and like some UI design decisions and why some might be better. They haven't spent decades learning a specific tooling or a specific set of tools. They're still kind of a blank slate. Kids especially, and this only applies if you're not their parents, by the way. If you are their parents and you want them to use Linux, forbid it in the house. Say, no Linux in our house, and they'll get into it. If you aren't their parents, this is more for you. They are, especially kids, are just generally curious. They have the spare time, and when I say kids, I mean middle to early high school. They have the spare time to sort of experiment with these things. And so they're a good place to start. If you want to start growing the user base, be like a drug dealer, hook them early and hook them young. Get them kind of away from the touch interfaces into a space where they can experiment and learn more about these computer things they use everywhere. Maybe you have no idea how they work. And you could probably get some growth that way. Again, any parents in the room know that probably won't work if you're mom and dad. If you're mom and dad, they're not going to do what you want. They're going to, if you say we're using Linux in this house, they're going to get a Windows 11 gaming laptop. I mean, that's just the way it is. Reverse psychology there. And I think this has the ability. I think this has kind of the poke and the prod. And this is where influence kind of becomes important. We live in a very consumer-centric society. I find a lot of the standard tools or laptops and whatnot and tablets that you buy to be consumer devices. They just are there to consume. Don't think about it. Just get excited for product and wait for next, and buy next product. So it might be something to where you can get someone into this world and turn them from a simple consumer into more of a thinker or an artist or a scientist or otherwise interesting, useful people instead of someone who just waits for the next thing to come out. Ultimately, if none of this suits your fancy and you feel this mood coming on to be an evangelist on a forum or social media, take a deep breath and realize none of this matters. It doesn't matter. Just walk away. I would say don't prod people. Leave them alone. And if that really doesn't help you kind of cool off and take a break, remember there's other people on top of the food chain here. I mean, Linux is not, we've got we got SBSD users out there to put you in your place. So just remember there's someone else on top of the food chain. So yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the basics of the talk there. I've got a few more things I want to add, but any questions or anything? Comments?
It's good. It's great.
But I just I get, especially after the Linus Tech Tips incident, so I was like, really, you guys took the bait? And it kind of prodded me into this direction of like, maybe we need some rethinking about how we promote Linux and stuff like that. So
Leander, I have a question.
Sure.
Back when you got the picture of the guy eating the sandwich,
yeah,
where did you get my profile picture?
I think that was a stock photo from Unsplash or something. But yeah,
okay.
Someone sold it.
Yeah.
But and that's another thing. I don't want to sound like I'm being like a judgmental butthead, but at the same point, there needs to be a little bit of. It's one of those things where if we keep like. I don't want to dumb down the ecosystem to just everybody. Like, it's not for everybody. It's just like driving a tiny sports car is not for everybody with a manual transmission. Not everyone needs a giant pickup truck. You know, there are specialty tools for people with different needs or different interests. Like, so I'm trying to go for that. Like, gatekeeping is not necessarily awful. It gets an awful rep because it's used to hold out people of, you know, just different backgrounds than you are. And I think that's unfortunate and sad. But at the same time, it's like, hey, maybe if somebody is like really hating their experience with Linux and are just not jiving with it, don't like, you know, they just want to, at the end of the day, they just want to watch their favorite Twitch e-girl do whatever. Just say, maybe it's not for you, and let them go. It's kind of been my thought process later. Anyway, the technical users thing is something I will say I have learned that lesson the hard way, trying to help technical people use Linux who have, you know, physicists, filmmakers, engineers, people who are not stupid. They are very intelligent, often more intelligent than me. That's a low bar, but far more intelligent than me. But they are so deeply and heavily invested in their tool set, and I'm not kidding on the difference thing. It doesn't, if a button is in a different place than where they were expecting it in their old tool, that's enough to send them flying off. Like it's not that it doesn't have the feature or the thing, it's that it's different, and that's enough to set them off. Again, time is money to those people, right? So yeah. Anyway, any other comments?
And you've made some, I think, some good distinctions there. A consumer, a user who is just interested in, I mean, if 90% of 99% of their needs are fed by using a browser, then that's one type of person. And while a Chromebook is perfect for them and all that, what I find myself doing is consuming more than I'm using the technical side of Linux. But if you can find kind of a happy medium there, then I think those are the kind of people that would be likely to embrace Linux more than the other commercial stuff.
And I think the youth comment, I mean, I was kind of joking about the kids and the drug dealer thing, but once kids get into high school and college, it's really hard. Like they start getting solidified in what they like. But if you have access to it, that sounds bad. Someone's going to call me a groomer anyway. But if you have access to a middle schooler or an early high schooler, and you know they're showing a little curiosity, they're pretty easy to kind of be like start introducing to the stuff, because you know they've got maybe not as much as they used to, but they've got nothing but time on their hands, and you know that age they're still pretty curious. They're still pretty interested in what adults are doing and learning what adults are doing. And you know I do think that that's a good area to focus on outreach, is that kind of younger age thing. Like I said, once they get into college, it's like I've had some success teaching kids, but if they aren't self-motivated or interested in the underlying technology by that point, they are very much on the path to the I would say the technical professional side of things. Remember, GNU is not Linux, right? So Ed, that actually got me in trouble, because when I got reorganized a couple of years ago, my new boss was like, "Hey, you're a Linux admin and guy. We need help on the Mac side. Mac is Linux, right?" And I was like, "Technically, no, it's BSD." And I went through all these differences between
No.
BSD, and he was like, "The fact that you know that just means that you got that work." So, yeah. Anyway, but that's yeah. And I mean, the thing about most people don't like to be told their tool is wrong. Even the mild suggestion of it among technical users just gets you into like a almost fist fight brawl, I feel like, about it. Like it's like, and that's why, I mean, I've not been pushy about using dark tables with photographers for years. Even if somebody is like, I hate Adobe, they keep charging money and putting AI into this thing, I don't mention it still, because they're just there to vent. You're there to listen. Like, they're venting. They aren't going to switch. Like, especially if they do it for a living, never going to switch. Like, it's not going to happen. Maybe if they retire, they're doing it for a hobby, but no. And so they're just venting. And I feel like you need to have that human kind of social cue to figure out, are they venting or are they really looking for another solution? And yeah, and so nobody wants to hear their tool is wrong, even if they really are frustrated with it themselves. So
where are you going to give this talk?
Southeast Linux Fest in Charlotte, next Saturday, a week from today.
Right.
So, I don't know if that's an impressed question or an unimpressed question. My apologies either way.
Leander, Rusty here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a chance to run this talk through, and I'm sure that some of your more technical talks are sort of bounded by more specific mandates to, cover the technology. Whereas this, I get the feeling that you're actually presenting something that is really your deep-seated experience of both satisfaction and frustration by being an accomplished person with your technology and encountering people who would like to have that access. Well, just your statement that GNU is not Linux is an example of how you are living in two worlds, where you have the satisfaction of the GNU world and the satisfaction of Linux as a tool.
I was just reading Dan's chat.
That was mine. That
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't Leander's.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you
mine.
mean, you picked that up from, did you text that, Dan?
I chatted
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I see, and then Leander repeated it.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to share, where I am in the spectrum, as folks in this group are probably aware. I am somebody who's driven by trying to get results, and I inevitably end up with some sort of open source tool that I'm trying to ponder, and I run into exactly what you described. I have the urge to try to get the to complain a little bit and maybe try to ask for the tool that I'm wanting to have, even if it is already represented in the open source, but needs to be relearned. But what amazes me is some of the people that are in the support environment for an open source software that really know the software, and they're responding to the needs of these users that really don't know it. But these moderators that you find in the forums that really kind of gently bring a new user into the reality of what the open source tool is actually doing. I encountered this on Digicam, where there were just recurring people that would you would speak about your needs or what could be improved, and you would actually be able to get history of how the group has either done that already or is trying to do it, or variations of catering to the needs. And to me, it's such an attractive world at multiple levels. It becomes not just whether or not the open source tool will do what you want to do, but it's the community itself becomes attractive. I think every time you enter into open source space, you discover this community, and it seems to me the community is composed of the same diversity of skill levels and frustration and satisfaction levels that you are expressing in your talk. Anyway, that's my take on it. I think it's a very useful talk, but you're covering such a wide range of cultural behavior and even psychology or the emotions of human behavior that are involved in it. And it just amazes me of how much I'm most impressed by the people that are willing to go into that community environment and both be technical, programmer skills, but also to have the human skills to to moderate and arbitrate all of the interaction that eventually changes that open source software. And that's what I find so fascinating. And it is a waste of time if people enter into that open source environment thinking that they're just going to get what they want and they're going to go home with it and it's going to deliver automatically the outcome. It's sort of like the outcome of the open source tool is really this strange mix of technical proficiency and human ability, human interaction. I think that's very often the strange chemistry of corporate or business success. It's success both at a technical level and the actual interactions of the people that compose the business. Anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a wide topic. Like I said, this was triggered a number of years ago by that whole YouTubers trying Linux thing, and like it was clearly bait. It was clearly there to get clicks. They were going to make it fail. They weren't, that was the shtick. But almost every website, forum, and mailing list I was on at the time lit up with it. Oh, I can't believe he did that. And I'm like, stop taking the bait. It's like, Linux can't be all things, all people. Quit showing up in these people's comments saying, whenever they have a mild problem with Windows, saying, oh, you should use Linux. It'll be a lot better. Because at the end of the day, chasing technological nirvana is a fool's errand. It doesn't exist. You're trading one set of problems for another set of problems. What problems you have more patience for and tolerance for depends on the person and the end goal. And like you say, Rusty, kind of knowing the wisdom and knowing the difference there is probably an age thing. When I was younger, I resembled a lot of this presentation. So, I mean, I don't mean to be like, I'm trying to disclaimer and say, hey, I'm not trying to live in a glass house and throw stones or whatever. I've done this crap before too. We've all been there. But I'm hoping maybe I can stop some people from making the same mistake a little bit. But yeah, I think there is, when you get enthusiasts of any type together, it forms an echo chamber, and that's why I like to push out into more wider demographics and use cases and try to see what other people are doing. You have this whole war on bloatware in the Linux world, and I mean, I use GNOME, and people are like, oh, I can't believe you said you use bloated desktop. I'm like, it works. I gets my work done. Like, I can start it up and start using it. I mean, I've been using KDE on the laptop just to try it because they've got the new 6 version out. But I'm like, if it helps you get your work done, it's not bloatware. It's a tool. I'm not going to sit here all day and play with awesome WM or whatever else and try to get it just right, and then to have an update break it, I'm just going to use the thing that everyone's looking at and signs into my Nextcloud okay, and works, because I've got, I'm working on a book on Japanese astronomy. I'm working on photos. I'm writing, like, I've got stuff to do. Like, and that's, but so I don't know. I think sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. Like it's just, the forest is getting things done. The forest is building things. The forest is contributing to society in a meaningful way, contributing to our fellow, explaining the human condition in a meaningful way. I'm not sure the degree of tool polishing that goes on in the Linux world is really helpful to that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things. One is, more about the content, just
Yeah.
to further the discussion is like, it seems like the sweet spot of a lot of folks that would have been good target users for Linux, they and rightly so, have just stopped using general purpose computers. Like they can get by on their tablets and their cell phones and their televisions, because if all they're doing is consuming content or doing social media, that's, the computer is not the tool for that. But then again, what are they using ultimately? They're ultimately using Linux or BSD.
Right.
So, we got them.
See you, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like I said, my in-law, my mother-in-law kept getting viruses on her Windows computer, so I stuck Debian with XFCE on it and just put a giant Firefox icon on her desktop, and she never got another virus again. I mean, this is 5 or 10 years ago, but because I mean everything she was getting was like Flash and Java. This was malware, and Firefox with the uBlock origin stopped all of that, and not being able to just run any exe off the internet stopped that. And yeah, I agree, they've kind of moved on. That's why I kind of put the bit, and I'm trying to massage that point a bit about the difference between consumers and producers. I think like if you are looking to build something, those tools are extremely limited, and desktop general, like Macs and to a degree, Windows is definitely heading more in that direction of a lockdown consuming device. But yeah, go ahead with your other point. Sorry, before I get distracted.
The next point is one of presentation, which is basically like, it was great,
Yeah.
but don't be afraid to take it up a notch. Don't be afraid to take the outrage to 11. The feigned outrage. Don't, kind of like you kind of shift from the do's, don'ts, and do's. So like, don't be afraid to make it like bad cop, good cop, with like sort of like, just, you're not going to offend anyone for real. So, in the
Yeah,
interest of entertainment, just play the part to the nines.
that's a good. Thanks. That's a good point. It's kind of hard to do that over the web meeting. I think I present better in person, but yeah, that's a good point. Is to kind of jazz it up a little bit, get it more animated, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. That's Yeah. Any other input, or everybody's kind of heading off? I know we're over time. Thanks for listening to this at any rate, guys. So
It was a great presentation. Yeah.
I can't believe they accepted it. So anyway,
Was it politically correct?
I don't know. It's
Who
well
cares?
that particular conference is. I like that conference is a great mix of people. You get the they usually have talks on like women and LGBT people in tech, and then they have like a gun night. Like it is the weirdest mix of you meet all kinds there. It's crazy. But they all come around, they're kind of circle around, they're kind of
Sounds like a Drupal camp.
yeah. So I mean they all kind of have circle around their they're it's not a very corporate conference, which I like. A lot of the ones that we go to for work are very like sponsored by blah blah blah, and are very kind of, you got to be kind of, you can't say anything too mean about the sponsors, whereas this one you can go into the open source talk and heckle them and be like, your product sucks, or
NVIDIA what?
yeah. So it's a little less corporate focused. It's a little bit more like laid back, and I mean they have general rules. You can't be harassing butt munch and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and I don't think they like naked political content.
That wouldn't
But
work.
Yeah, but I think that it draws a diverse crowd together. When I see young folks, all sorts of, it is predominantly white guy because there's a lot of IT people there, but you see in the younger crowd you do see a lot of diversity, and like I said, it's like you get the talks of everything from like problems with sexism in tech to then they've got a gun night, and I'm like, maybe one of these could fix the other. So anyway, but it's a very interesting conference. So, but yeah.
Well, good luck. Good luck
Thank
with
you.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, guys. I don't want to hold anybody any longer. So unless you have any unless you have any more comments, I'll turn it back over to Brent to dismiss or whatever.
Yeah,
The
thanks.
only comment I have is that the talk reminded me of my efforts to get my son interested in programming, and I thought he should learn to program, and he wanted to do everything on his own terms, and
That's what I have discovered with kids is like if you are not mom and dad, you've got more. They'll listen to you more. If you're mom and dad and you want them to do something, forbid it. Just say no programming in this house whatsoever. If I see a Kerningham book or anything like that, or an O'Reilly book, you're out on the streets, mister.
Hey,
And
hey,
then they
Leander,
will take it up.
do you know how to catch a dew bird?
No, I've
With
never.
a double nested dew loop.
But yeah, I
Double nested dude.
But yeah, I feel your pain there with working with your own kids. Like I said, when it's mom and dad saying something,
Yeah.
they do not want to do it. So, but
Sorry about that.
yeah, no, you're good. You're good. All right, Brent, it's your dog and pony show now.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for that presentation. It's nice to have some content. Nudge to anyone else other than Dan. Dan gets a pass. And of course Leander. But yeah, well, let's figure out something else to do. But thanks all for coming, and we're well past time, so have a great one.
Yep. Thanks.
As
Thanks,
Leander said,
y'all.
touch grass.
Yeah. I guess you're going to handle the live stream upload, right, Brent? Turning it on for everybody?
I will. It should just be sitting out there in the
Yeah.
YouTubes.
Yeah, but you got to stop it, and so
Yeah,
make it live.
I'll see what I can do. It may be in. I don't know if it's in two pieces since I had to restart.
No,
it.
it'll be together. It'll be
Okay.
together. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and see if I can do that. I think I've done that once before.
You just have to make it turn it off of unlisted to public.
Okay. Yeah. If I do something wrong, let me know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.